So, hey guys, it's me, your boy Ryan Swag, and I'm going to talk about grass types. And the main reason why I want to cover these grass types is not only is one of my faves, Sceptile, out, so I got a Sceptile now. Another reason why is because Groudon raids happened, and like Groudon has Solar Beam. And another thing we saw with the Groudon raids was that we had Ho-Oh performing extremely well. The top two Pokemon I repped for the Groudon raids were Gyarados and then Ho-Oh, because that Solar Beam and its unique set of resistances allowed it to really shine in that fight. That fight's still going on too. Sorry, I don't know, I've been looking at so much Kyogre stuff lately that like, oh yeah, Groudon's still around. But like, I haven't rated a Groudon in like a week. Still here, isn't he? But yeah, so Solar Beam Groudon and Solar Beam Ho-Oh, they pose like this interesting sort of threat on grass types because, you know, you're looking at a base, you're looking at the Groudon fight, and you'd be thinking like, okay, I know, Vaporeon and Gyarados are going to be really good in this fight, but the grass types, they got to be really good. Ho-Oh leading the charge with their very own Solar Beam, and then we found that Groudon was sitting in front of them with his Solar Beam, so that was kind of interesting. So I was like, you know, let's put these grass types under the microscope, see how much of an influence these kind of pseudo grass type legendaries have on them, and yeah, give it a full shakedown. So that's what I'm doing today. So brief history of grass types in Pokemon Go. In the very beginning of Pokemon Go, grass types had a lot of hype for both gym offense and gym defense, because in the early days of Go, the only Pokemon that was really good that people had in basically in mass was Vaporeon. So if you were to try to defend a gym back when defending a gym mattered, right? You wanted to put grass types in the gym to throw off Vaporeon, and then there's Vaporeons in the gym. What are you going to use to fight it with but your grass types? So that made grass types like really high value. And I got a little fun treat that I dug up for you guys. But yeah, so a little blast from the past here, and this is my first ever Defender tier list. Made this within the first month of Pokemon Go, and actually looking at the dates, this tier list, I developed it before Game Press even made a tier list, right? But you never seen this because it was only on my, you know, hometown's Team Instinct page. I was kind of manic about gyms, and I really wanted to rule my hometown, and I was thoroughly convinced that if I posted anything good on Reddit, and me being convinced that I've got the best strategies ever and stuff like that, I was like, no. The Red Blues in my hometown, they're going to see my strats, and now then they're going to use my strategies against me. I can't have that. So, but yeah, it came up for, you know, game presses. And yeah, it truly emphasizes that grass types were a big focus for gym defense for us. Especially if you didn't have Executor. It also has like little instructions. And yeah, the instructions here are basically saying, if you don't have an Executor in the gym, you probably want like 2 or 3 of these in the gym. And like for each one of these top 8 here that you don't have, you make up for it by putting in another grass type, because you want to throw off those Vaporeons. You want to make the Vaporeon assault that much harder. So just an interesting blast from the past. Another interesting like parallel with this, I found Game Press's tier list from this time too, and looking at them side by side, it's like it's all exactly the same Pokemon, just like ever so slightly rearranged. The only major differences is that they like Wigglytuff more, and I like Muck more from way back when. So I thought that was just really interesting when I was going through some old files of mine. And then as Pokemon Go developed, grass types stayed really good. Executor still had that confusion, so gym defense, Executor was like basically a staple. As people developed more powerful Pokemon, you know, using Venusaur got to be much more questionable on gym defense. It was kind of hanging in there for a while, but over time it eventually lost luster. And then Gen 2 came out. Gen 2 brought some new challenges, some new threats, some new advantages for grass types. One advantage that it brought in was Blissey, and if you remember the old school Defender wheel, it was actually one of my first ever like Sylph Road Reddit posts, and actually was the first thing that really inspired me to continue to post on the Sylph Road more, despite me giving my secret tech to all the Red Blues in the world that could turn them against me. I don't know. Early day Pokemon Go, just filled with the weirdest mania. Blissey, right? Executor was a pretty good like B, C list option for a Blissey counter, but early Gen 2, we didn't have a whole bunch of Machamps. A lot of people still didn't have Dragonites, and basically no one had a Tyranitar until much later in Gen 2. So those were like the main counters to Blissey, but like ones that people actually had were like Ursaring, Exeggutor, and Flareon. So Exeggutor had a lot of swag there, and that Solar Beam was very satisfying to use too. But yeah, no, so Gen 2 came out, and Exeggutor was still leading the charge for the grass types, and gym stacking was still based on CP, so you're still seeing a lot of ground and water type Pokemon in high stacks. So Exeggutor was still really a good all-arounder. Then things got a little bit harder for grass types as we moved on. They had the gym update, right? And so high stacking was no longer the way to do things. And if you wanted to attack a gym, having a single big slow hitting single bar charge move, that really wasn't as efficient. And then they brought in the raids, so basically everybody could have a Machamp and Tyranitar if they, you know, tried hard enough and organized with people, which also hurt the grass types as well, because now people had other options to fight Blissey with and to fight Pokemon that are in the gym with. And when it came to like more demotivated gyms, you really wanted to have those multi-bar charge moves. And Seed Bomb Exeggutor was fine, but really wasn't cutting it for a lot of situations that Solar Beam was making it stand out in. So it was like a change in the times, kind of really hurting Exeggutor and grass types there. And as far as gym defense goes, it really did start to slide into that you can put whatever you want into the gym meta. So if you weren't like Blissey, Chansey, or Snorlax, like, okay, well, what are you putting in? No one cares. And then with the raid scene, the raid bosses, as far as stuff that they countered well, you know, Exeggutor was kind of like a niche option against the Machamp raids. I mean, I use an Exeggutor in my old school Machamp clear team, so what am I saying? But not exactly the best, and it really wasn't doing something as a grass type there. It had Vaporeon to contend with, and that was like the main thing that you'd use grass types for, which was the Vaporeon solos. So yeah, kind of like a interesting period for grass types, because more powerful Pokemon that weren't grass were more easily obtained, and it kind of like closed off their niches a little bit. But they were still rocking it, they were still doing pretty good. Another thing that kind of put grass types out of vogue historically were the legendary birds, were the first set of raids that we got. And what's a grass type going to do against a bird? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So yeah, it's kind of fallen out of vogue some more. But things were still fine for them until Raikou came to town. And Raikou is basically so good. You know, I do have a breakdown of that. Yeah, you know what? I can show it up right now. This is part of the Kyogre content I've been lightly working on. It includes Dragon-Tail Kyogre stuff, even though Dragon-Tail Kyogre doesn't exist. But the thing I wanted to bring up was Raikou not only has the higher DPS against water types compared to Exeggutor, but as far as the damage that they're taking from the same attacks, it's actually doing like as well as Exeggutor as far as resisted hits go. So Exeggutor here resists Waterfall. Waterfall does 12 damage to Exeggutor. Raikou doesn't resist Waterfall, and it does 13 damage to Raikou. So Raikou's stats, its legendary stats, are so good that even though it doesn't resist these water hits like the grass types do, it's taking as much damage as them. The Hydro Pump is also kind of telling, you know, 92, 99. And then I also kind of like did this survivability combination. Don't worry about it too much. All you really need to know right now about it is that Raikou against water type attacks is still like bulkier and has like better damage than grass types do. So yeah, Raikou really sort of marked a lot of trouble for grass type Pokemon. They were also seeing a lot of value from Zapdos. Even though Zapdos isn't as cool as Raikou is, Zapdos against Suicune raids was still doing better than Exeggutor was. But once again, suffers from being a legendary, so not a lot of people have multiples of them powered up. Personally, I only have one Raikou powered up right now. I'm currently eyeballing, I'm flirting with the idea of powering up a second one, just because it's so dang good, and Kyogre's coming up. Raikou, right, the existence of Raikou and Zapdos kind of put pressure on grass types. They're more optimal now for fighting like ground types and rock types, but there it already faces a lot of competition from water types. And then Gyarados comes in with the waterfall now, and you're thinking like, oh, well, grass types, they still resist ground and hit super effective. Well, guess what? Gyarados is a flying type and has that immunity to resistance to ground type attacks. So he's kind of doing everything grass types do against ground types even better. So yeah, things aren't looking too hot for them there. Yeah, so against Rock-type Pokemon, Machamp is beating down on them. Now we got Hariyama to beat down on them. And for Ground-type Pokemon, we got Gyarados, who's winning it all. And then Kyogre is coming in soon. It's low-key confirmed. Like, it's not confirmed, but it's like 99.99% gonna be our next raid boss, Kyogre. So, and that guy's gonna be like the mega god of water type Pokemon. Gyarados better watch out. So yeah, experiencing all these threats from Pokemon that we currently have, but none of these Pokemon are really doing grass type stuff. And what was kind of interesting with that is that we got Ho-Oh, right? And we were all kind of making fun of it because it's got like this weird move pool, and the Solar Beam was kind of awkward, and it was kind of funny because it was also its like best neutral attacking move. But all the laughter stopped when Groudon came into town, and we found that Ho-Oh was this optimal counter to Groudon. So we got Groudon here, and we're seeing that like Ho-Oh's leading the charge. Grass types like Exeggutor and Sceptile still have like higher DPS than Ho-Oh, but in the face of like 1.5 more TDO, like I definitely think that Ho-Oh took the cake as far as being a grass type damage dealer in this raid. Another advantage that Ho-Oh had over these Pokemon is that it resisted the ground type attacks just like they do, but Ho-Oh also resists Fire Blast, which the grass types are weak to. Yeah, poor guys. Yeah, Groudon also had the Solar Beam, which Ho had a doubled up immunity to resistance to. The grass types only had a single resistance to, and like I was showing you with those bulk thresholds with Raikou versus Exeggutor versus Kyogre, Groudon's Solar Beam was so powerful that if the grass type, if Exeggutor for example was damaged enough, it would get auto KO'd by it. And it would basically be a glass cannon like Sceptile, except glass, would be doing the glass, Sceptile is doing the cannon part a lot better than Exeggutor was, because it's got that leaf blade. Then we also have Groudon swagging in right here with its own Solar Beam, able to fight itself. Groudon with Solar Beam, another major game changer for grass type Pokemon overall, because the one raid that grass types were really shining in the present is against Omastar. And guess who's the dad of that raid now? You got Groudon being better by Pokebattler standard overall. I mean, of course, against the Hydro Pump sets, it's not doing as hot, but according to Pokebattler's overall function, still better than a lot of things. And when it's against any of the rock type movesets, it's just, you know, the grass types can't really do anything to front on Groudon. So yeah, so this presents like an interesting situation for grass type Pokemon in the game, where these legendary Pokemon like Ho-Oh and Groudon are getting Solar Beam, and it's allowing them to do like basically their job, their damage, stuff like that, but with a unique set of resistances. So grass types are getting like more and more pushed out of the game a bit as far as that goes. Basically, yeah, like Ozza said earlier, basically the grass is becoming the new ice type in a way. That said, grass types aren't exactly down and out yet. They're more easily obtainable. You can catch them at level 35 on a sunny day. So they're not like completely out of the game yet. They're just having a lot of trouble with these legendaries. And then another legendary that's coming in soon is Latios. Well, okay, I say soon. I have no idea when they're going to release the Lati twins. But Latios also gets Solar Beam, and I decided to plot it on this graph here for Kyogre. And it's like as good as Venusaur, a bit worse than Exeggutor in the Waterfall Hydro Pump Kyogre raid in a way. And I found that in the Suicune raid, it was actually outperforming a lot of the grass types, and it was actually slightly better than Exeggutor was against Suicune. So it kind of like, they're getting pushed even more like out of their own roles because Niantic's giving these legendaries these super mega strong attacks for grass. The main advantage that grass types do have, though, is that you can wild catch them. These are legendary Pokemon. Latios, Raikou, you know, Groudon, Ho-Oh. I only got so much rare candy, and on top of that, I only got so much Stardust to spend. So the main things that are keeping grass types in style is the fact that you can obtain them easily. Another cool thing to note is Celebi. A legendary grass type. Is that the savior of grass types in a way? Not necessarily, because right now in the Game Master, the present Game Master, Celebi doesn't learn any grass type attacks. It learns Confusion, it learns Charge Beam, Hyper Beam, Psychic, Dazzling Gleam. If it were to learn a grass type charge move, like Grass Knot for example, then it would be a really tanky, decent grass type, and it would kind of be like, you'd have that that conversation in a way where it's like, if you want more DPS, you'd use Executor, but if you wanted way more TDO, you'd use Celebi. At least that's what my kind of surface level glaze did, but it's kind of difficult to check out fantasy moves all the time. So yeah, Celebi could be a grass type legendary that could give some more hype to the grass types. But yeah, in Go, grass types are going out of style kind of quickly. Now, a little shift of gears here, Curiosity. What are the best grass type charge moves? And I got the grass analysis. Look at all these numbers. There's the graph. So I graphed out grass type charge moves off of a level 40 Executor against a Waterfall Hydro Pump Kyogre raid. So Executor can't learn all of these charge moves. I just graphed out all the charge moves using Executor as like a palette as a good grass type Pokemon. So a lot of people think Solar Beam is the best grass type charge move, but Leaf Blade is a bit better for DPS, and graphing out here you can see that it is like roughly 1 DPS better than Solar Beam is. And it's got that 3-bar charge and it's powerful, but for the longest time only Victory Bell had it and could use it very well. Sceptile came in with Leaf Blade, and with that, Sceptile is now sort of like the high DPS grass type option if you were to compare them all to next side by side. So depending on what the raid is, you might have some slight advantages using that Leaf Blade Sceptile over using the slow Solar Beam Executor. Also, having the 3-bar charge move means that, you know, like, see this line? You know, this is the average. Down here is when you faint and you don't get a Solar Beam off when you're really close. Here is where all your Solar Beams work out, so it's a little bit safer to go with the multi-bar charge move as well if you want to for sure get that damage in. But I decided to graph them all out, and I found that Grass Knot and Power Whip are basically as strong as Leaf Blade is in performance here. And so, like, looking at the charge moves, I was like, well, why aren't we seeing Power Whip and Grass Knot? Kind of funny thing about them is that they're the same damage, they've got the same cooldown and the same DPS, so I just thought that was kind of weird. But yeah, so Power Whip, why aren't we seeing this move being used? Well, it's because, like, only Lickitung, like, I mean, look at these guys, they're all NFE, and then there's Lickitung. So nobody's really using it. Tangela used to have it, can't learn it anymore. We got Grass Knot here, and it's the same thing. Like, Cacturn can learn it, but Cacturn isn't even in the game right now, so there's that. But yeah, the only Pokemon that's like fully evolved that can use it is Tangela, and Tangela's not all that great as a grass type. So kind of unfortunate that the grass types are a little bit held back by that. Another thing that's kind of interesting is that you got Venusaur, and Venusaur's evolutionary line can learn Power Whip, but Venusaur doesn't get it. And it's a better move than Petal Blizzard by far. So if Niantic, if you're watching this, you know, give Venusaur Power Whip, please. But yeah, I checked it out a little bit earlier. I didn't represent it graphically in any way, but using Pokebattler and typing in some fantasy simulations, I found that a Power Whip Venusaur, like Vine Whip Power Whip Venusaur, is slightly better than what we have for Executor right now. And since it does have that multi-bar sort of advantage, it could even take Sceptile out of being like the kind of glass cannon option, being so powerful with the Power Whip on the Venusaur. So I thought that was kind of interesting for the grass type attacks there. You just don't know Pokemon Go. Gen 4 also has Tangela's evolution, Tangrowth. I also encourage you guys to look up the Japanese names for Tangela and Tangrowth. It's like Mojambombro or something like that, like Mojambo and stuff like that. It makes them sound way cooler than Tangela and Tangrowth. But yeah, so they also got that, and they might be really good grass types too, because right now Tangela's got Power Whip and Grass Knot, which makes it really competitive with the grass types despite having the lower stats. So if a stronger iteration of itself were to maintain those moves, then, you know, feasibly it would be a stronger grass type. The future is coming. That was a cut from my live stream SwagTips. SwagTips streams every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time on the Twitch channel SwagTips. If there's a specific topic that you'd like covered, comment below and let me know. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe. Seriously, just hit subscribe. SwagTips. Swag tip. Yeah, it'll help you, it increases your catch rate to subscribe to me. Yeah, don't press OK. That's not real, but subscribing to me, trust me.